Okay, everybody, listen up.
Hello class. Welcome to this week's filmmaking lesson. Here are the sponsor video is called Laugh Shack and Walt Disney records an extremely goofy movie dance party album. So we can do it today. First, we will be doing home video releases. Today we will be doing Dick Tracy. Here is the plot of this film. The film is set in the 1930s. 5-6, at an illegal card game. A young street urchin witnesses a massacre of a group of mobsters at the hands of Flat Top and Itchy, two of the hoods on the payroll of Alphonse Big Boy Caprice. Big Boy's crime syndicate is aggressively taking over small businesses in the city. Detective Dick Tracy catches the urchin, who calls himself Kid, in an act of petty theft. After rescuing him from the ruthless host, Tracy temporarily adopts him with the help of his girlfriend, Tess Trueheart. Meanwhile, Big Boy coerces club owner Lips Manlas into signing over the deed to Club Ritz. He then kills Lips with a cement overcoat, referred to on screen as the Bath, and steals his girlfriend, the seductive and sultry singer, Breathless Mahoney. After Lips is reported missing, Tracy interrogates his three hired guns Flat Top, Itchy, and Mumbles, then goes to the club to arrest Big Boy for Lips' murder. Breathless is the only witness. Instead of providing testimony, she unsuccessfully attempts to seduce Tracy. Big Boy cannot be indicted and he is released from jail. Big Boy's next move is to try to bring other criminals, including Spud Spaldini, Pruneface, Influence, Texie Garcia, Ribs Maka, and Numbers, together under his leadership. Spaldini refuses and is killed with a car bomb, leaving Dick Tracy, who discovered the meeting and was attempting to spy on it, wondering what is going on. The next day, Big Boy and his henchmen kidnap Tracy and attempt to bribe him. Tracy refuses, prompting the criminals to attempt to kill him. However, Tracy is saved by Kid, who gets prized by the police with an honorary detective certificate, which will remain temporary until he decides a name for himself. Breathless shows up at Tracy's apartment, once again in an attempt to seduce him. Tracy shows he is only human by allowing her to kiss him. Tess witnesses this and eventually leaves town. Tracy leads a seemingly unsuccessful raid on Club Ritz, but it is actually a diversion so that Officer Bug Bailey can enter the building to operate a secretly installed listening device so the police can hear in on Big Boy's criminal activities. The resultant raids all but wipe out Big Boy's criminal empire. However, Big Boy discovers Bug and captures him for a trap planned by Influence and Pruneface to kill Tracy in the warehouse. In the resulting gun battle, a stranger with no face called the Blank steps out of the shadows to save Tracy after he is cornered and kills Pruneface. Influence escapes as Tracy rescues Bug from the fate that befell Lips Manlas, and Big Boy is enraged to hear that the Blank foiled the hit. Tracy tries again to get the testimony from Breathless he needs to put Big Boy away. She agrees to testify only if Tracy agrees to give in to her advances. Tess eventually has a change of heart, but before she can tell Tracy, she is kidnapped by the Blank, with the help of Big Boy's club piano player, 88 Keys. Tracy is drugged and rendered unconscious by the Blank, framed for murdering the corrupt district attorney John Fletcher, and is detained. The Kid, meanwhile, adopts the name Dick Tracy Jr. Big Boy's business thrives until the Blank frames him for Tess kidnapping. Released by his colleagues on New Year's Eve, Tracy interrogates Mumbles and arrives at a shootout outside the Club Ritz where Big Boy's men are killed or captured by Tracy and the police. Abandoning his crew, Big Boy flees to a drawbridge and ties Tess to the gears before he is confronted by Tracy. Their fight is halted when the Blank appears and holds both men at gunpoint, offering to share the city with Tracy after Big Boy is dead. When Junior arrives, Big Boy takes advantage of the distraction and opens fire before Tracy sends him falling to his death in the bridge gears, while Junior rescues Tess. Mortally wounded, the Blank is revealed to be Breathless Mahoney, who kisses Tracy before dying. All charges against Tracy are dropped. Later, Tracy proposes to Tess when he is interrupted by the report of a robbery in progress. He leaves her with a ring before heading away with Dick Tracy Jr. Alright. So tomorrow we will be doing Alien 1979. Here is the plot in this film. The commercial space tug Nostromo is on a return trip to Earth with a 7-member crew in stasis: Captain Dallas, Tom Skerritt, Executive Officer Kane, John Hurt, Warrant Officer Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, Navigator Lambert, Veronica Cartwright, Science Officer Ash, Ian Holm, and 2 engineers, Parker, Yaphet Kotto, and Brett, Harry Dean Stanton. Detecting a transmission from nearby moon LV-426, the ship's computer, Mother, awakens the crew. Company policy requires any potential distress signal be investigated, so they land on the moon, sustaining damage from its atmosphere and rocky landscape. Parker and Brett repair the ship while Dallas, Kane and Lambert head out to investigate. They discover the signal comes from a derelict alien ship and enter it, losing communication with the Nostromo. Ripley deciphers part of the transmission, determining it to be a warning, but cannot relay this information to those on the derelict ship. Meanwhile, Kane discovers a chamber containing hundreds of large egg-like objects. When he touches one, a creature springs out, breaks through his helmet, and attaches itself to his face. Dallas and Lambert carry the unconscious Kane back to the Nostromo. As acting senior officer, Ripley refuses to let them aboard, citing quarantine regulations, but Ash overrides her decision and lets them inside. Ash attempts to remove the creature from Kane's face but stops when he discovers that its blood is an extremely corrosive acid. It later detaches on its own and is found dead. The ship is partly repaired, and the crew lifts off. Kane awakens with some memory loss but is otherwise unharmed. During a final crew meal before returning to stasis, he chokes and convulses. A small alien creature bursts from Kane's chest, killing him, and escapes into the ship. The crew attempts to locate it with tracking devices and capture or kill it with nets, electric prods and flamethrowers. Brett follows the crew's Cat Jones into a huge supply room, where the now fully grown alien, Bolaji Bejo, attacks and disappears with his body. After heated discussion, the crew decide the creature must be in the air ducts. Dallas enters the ducts, intending to force the alien into an airlock, but it ambushes and kills him. Lambert implores the others to abandon ship and escape in its small shuttle. Now in command, Ripley explains it will not support 4 people and pursues the plan of flushing out the alien. Now with access to Mother, Ripley discovers Ash has been secretly ordered by the company to bring the alien back, with the crew deemed expendable. She confronts Ash, who tries to choke her to death. Parker intervenes and clubs Ash, knocking his head loose and revealing him to be an android. Ash's head is reactivated, and they learn he was assigned to ensure the creature's survival. He expresses admiration for the creature's psychology, unhindered by conscience or morality, and taunts them about their chances of survival. Ripley cuts off his power. As they leave, Parker incinerates him. The remaining crew decides to self-destruct the Nostromo and escape in the shuttle. Parker and Lambert are killed by the creature as they gather supplies. Ripley initiates the self-destruct sequence, but finds the alien blocking her path to the shuttle. She retreats and attempts unsuccessfully to abort the self-destruct. With no further options, she makes her way to the shuttle and barely escapes as the Nostromo explodes. As Ripley prepares for stasis, she discovers that the alien is aboard, having wedged itself into a narrow space. She puts on a spacesuit and uses gas to flush the creature out. It approaches Ripley, but before it can attack she opens an airlock door, almost blowing the creature into space. It manages to hang on by gripping the frame. Ripley shoots it with a grappling hook, but the gun catches as the airlock door closes, tethering the alien to the shuttle. As it floats into one of the engine exhausts, Ripley ignites them to blast the creature free. After recording the final log entry, she places herself and the cat into stasis for the trip home to Earth. Alright. So on Thursday we will be doing Captain America Civil War. Here is the plot in this film. In 1991, the brainwashed super soldier James Bucky Barnes is dispatched from a Hydra base in Siberia to intercept an automobile carrying a case of super soldier serum. In the present day, approximately 1 year after Ultron's defeat in the nation of Sokovia at the hands of the Avengers, N1, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Sam Wilson, and Wanda Maximoff stop Brock Romero from stealing a biological weapon from a lab in Lagos. Romero blows himself up, attempting to kill Rogers. Maximoff telekinetically contains the explosion and throws it upward, damaging a nearby building and accidentally killing several Wakandan humanitarian workers. U.S. Secretary of State Thaddeus Ross informs the Avengers that the United Nations, UN, is preparing to pass the Sokovia Accords, which will establish a UN panel to oversee and control the team. The Avengers are divided. Tony Stark supports oversight because of his role in Ultron's creation and Sokovia's devastation, while Rogers has more faith in his own judgment than that of a government. Meanwhile, Helmut Zemo tracks down and kills Barnes' old Hydra handler, stealing a book containing the trigger words that activate Barnes' brainwashing. At a conference in Vienna where the Accords are to be ratified, a bomb kills King T'Chaka of Wakanda. Security footage indicates the bomber is Barnes, whom T'Chaka's son, T'Cha, vows to kill. Informed by Sharon Carter of Barnes' whereabouts and the authorities' intentions to kill him, Rogers decides to try to bring in Barnes, his childhood friend and war comrade, himself. Rogers and Wilson track Barnes to Bucharest and attempt to protect him from T'Cha and the authorities, but all four, including T'Cha, are apprehended. Impersonating a psychiatrist sent to interview Barnes, Zemo recites the words to make Barnes obey him. He questions Barnes, then sends him on a rampage to cover his own escape. Rogers stops Barnes and sneaks him away. When Barnes regains his senses, he explains that Zemo is the real Vienna bomber and wanted the location of the Siberian Hydra base, where other brainwashed Winter soldiers are kept in cryogenic stasis. Unwilling to wait for authorization to apprehend Zemo, Rogers and Wilson go rogue, and recruit Maximoff, Clint Barton, and Scott Lang to their cause. With Ross's permission, Stark assembles a team composed of Romanoff, T'Cha, James Rhodes, Vision, and Peter Parker to capture the renegades. Stark's team intercepts Rogers' group at Leipzig, Halle Airport, where they fight until Romanoff allows Rogers and Barnes to escape. The rest of Rogers' team is captured and detained at the Reft prison, while Rhodes is partially paralyzed after being inadvertently shot down by Vision, and Romanoff goes into exile. Stark discovers evidence that Barnes was framed by Zemo and convinces Wilson to give him Rogers' destination. Without informing Ross, Stark goes to the Siberian Hydra facility and strikes a truce with Rogers and Barnes, unaware that they were secretly followed by T'Cha. They find that the other super soldiers have been killed by Zemo, who then shows them footage that reveals that the automobile Barnes had intercepted in 1991 contained Stark's parents, whom Barnes subsequently killed. Enraged that Rogers kept this from him, Stark turns on them both, leading to an intense fight, in which Stark destroys Barnes' robotic arm, and Rogers disables Stark's armor. He departs with Barnes, leaving his shield behind. Satisfied that he has avenged his family's deaths in Sokovia from the Avengers' actions by successfully fracturing them, Zemo attempts suicide, but he is stopped by T'Cha and taken to the authorities. In the aftermath, Stark provides Rhodes with exoskeletal leg braces that allow him to walk again, while Rogers breaks his allies out of the raft. In a mid-credits scene, Barnes, granted asylum in Wakanda, chooses to return to cryogenic sleep until a cure for his brainwashing is found. In a post-credits scene, Parker explores the features of the web shooters built for him by Stark. Alright. On Friday we will be doing Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Here is the plot in this film. 2 years after the Battle of New York, N1, Steve Rogers works in Washington, D.C., for the espionage agency SHIELD under director Nick Fury, while adjusting to contemporary society. Rogers and agent Natasha Romanoff are sent with SHIELD's counterterrorism STRIKE team, led by Agent Trumolo, to free hostages aboard a SHIELD vessel from Georges Patronk and his mercenaries. Mid-mission, Rogers discovers Romanoff has another agenda, to extract data from the ship's computers for Fury. Rogers returns to the Triskelion, SHIELD's headquarters, to confront Fury and is briefed about Project Insight, 3 helicarriers linked to spy satellites, designed to preemptively eliminate threats. Unable to decrypt the data recovered by Romanoff, Fury becomes suspicious about Insight and asks senior SHIELD official and Secretary of Internal Security Alexander Pierce to delay the project. On his way to rendezvous with Maria Hill, Fury is ambushed by assailants led by a mysterious assassin called the Winter Soldier. Fury escapes to Rogers' apartment, and warns Rogers that SHIELD is compromised. Fury is gunned down by the Winter Soldier, before handing Rogers a flash drive containing data from the ship. Fury is pronounced dead during surgery, and Hill recovers the body. The next day, Pierce summons Rogers to the Triskelion. When Rogers withholds Fury's information, Pierce brands him a fugitive. Hunted by SDRIKE, Rogers meets with Romanov. Using data in the flash drive, they discover a secret SHIELD bunker in New Jersey, where they activate a supercomputer containing the preserved consciousness of Arnim Zola. Zola reveals that ever since SHIELD was founded after World War II, Hydra has secretly operated within its ranks, sowing global chaos with the objective of making humanity surrender its freedom in exchange for security. The pair narrowly escape death when a SHIELD missile destroys the bunker, and realize that Pierce is Hydra's leader within SHIELD. Rogers and Romanoff enlist the help of former USAF pararescueman Sam Wilson, whom Rogers befriended, and acquire his powered Falcon wingpack. Deducing that SHIELD agent Jasper Sitwell is a Hydra mole, they force him to divulge that Zola developed a data mining algorithm that can identify individuals becoming threats to Hydra. The Insight helicarriers will sweep the globe, using satellite-guided guns to eliminate these individuals. Rogers, Romanoff, and Wilson are ambushed by the Winter Soldier, who kills Sitwell. During the fight, Rogers recognizes the Winter Soldier as Bucky Barnes, his childhood best friend who supposedly fell to his death on a mission, but was actually captured and experimented upon after World War II. Hill manages to extract the trio to a safe house where Fury, who had faked his death, is waiting with plans to sabotage the helicarriers by replacing their controller chips. After the World Security Council members arrive for the helicarrier's launch, Rogers broadcasts Hydra's plot to everyone at the Triskelion. Romanoff, disguised as one of the council members, disarms Pierce. Fury arrives and forces Pierce to unlock SHIELD's database so that Romanoff can leak classified information, exposing Hydra to the public. Following a struggle, Fury kills Pierce. Meanwhile, Rogers and Wilson storm two helicarriers and replace the controller chips, but the Winter Soldier destroys Wilson's suit and fights Rogers on the third. Rogers fends him off and replaces the final chip, allowing Hill to take control and have the vessels destroy each other. Rogers refuses to fight the Winter Soldier in an attempt to reach his friend, but as the ship collides with the Triskelion, Rogers is thrown out into the Potomac River. The Winter Soldier rescues the unconscious Rogers before disappearing into the woods. With SHIELD in disarray, Romanoff appears before a Senate subcommittee and Fury, under the cover of his apparent death, heads to Eastern Europe in pursuit of Hydra's remaining cells. Rogers and Wilson decide to find the Winter Soldier, while Rumlow, who was a double agent for Hydra, is hospitalized following the Triskelion's destruction. In a mid-credits scene, Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, at a Hydra lab, proclaims that the Age of Miracles has begun as scientists examine an energy-filled scepter in two test subjects, one with superhuman speed, the other with telekinetic powers. In a post-credits scene, Barnes visits his own memorial at the Smithsonian Institution. Alright. Also on Friday we will be doing Destroyer. Here is the plot in this film. LAPD detective Erin Bell arrives on the scene of a John Doe murder and informs the responding officers that she knows the identity of the murderer. At the police station, Erin receives a $100 bill stained from a dye pack in an unmarked envelope. Using a contact at the FBI, she confirms that the bill is from a bank robbery committed by a California gang many years prior that she and her former partner Chris were embedded in as undercover officers. She tells her superiors that she believes the bill and the John Doe murder to be proof that the gang's leader Silas is once again active. Erin is forced to work her way through the remaining members of the gang in order to find Silas. She begins with Toby, who was arrested but is now gravely ill and living with his mother on compassionate release. She manually stimulates him in exchange for the location of Arturo, a member of the gang who attempts to atone for his past crimes by offering pro bono legal services to immigrants. Arturo provides Aaron with the location of Dennis DeFranco, a lawyer who launders the money from the original robbery and from whom Aaron deduces that Silas is active again because the money from the heist is almost gone. After threatening him, DeFranco gives Aaron the location of the next money handoff, which is performed by Silas' girlfriend Petra, who has developed a severe drug addiction. Aaron tracks Petra, eventually intervening in a bank robbery committed by Silas' new gang, and kidnaps Petra. Flashbacks reveal that Aaron and Chris developed a romantic relationship while undercover, with Aaron eventually becoming pregnant with Chris' child. At Aaron's behest, they decided to become legitimate participants in the bank robbery and plan to take their shares of the heist, report to their superiors that they lost contact with the gang, and eventually quit the force. The robbery was botched when a dye pack exploded in one of the bags, and Silas killed the bank teller who accidentally placed it. When Chris attempted to intervene, he was shot and killed by Silas. After crashing the van in a dumpster and seriously injuring Toby, Aaron hid her share of the heist and returned to policing, disclosing neither her original plan nor her share of the heist. In the present, Aaron visits a self-storage unit to retrieve her share of the stolen money, but finds that the majority of it is stained with dye. She receives a text message from Silas instructing her to meet him at the 6th Street Viaduct, where she confronts and shoots him, avenging Chris. She returns the next morning to find the police investigating the crime scene, the John Doe murder investigation depicted in the first scene of the film. With Silas dead, Aaron gives evidence of her guilt, Peter's location, the stained bill, and the key to her storage unit to her partner Antonio. Aaron has been bleeding internally from the injuries she sustained through her investigation, and she dies while sitting in her car. Alright. Also on Friday we will be doing Escape Room by Silver Fox and As a Red Fox. Here is the plot in this film. In Chicago, Illinois, physics student Zoe, stock boy Ben, day trader Jason, war veteran Amanda, trucker Mike, and escape room enthusiast Danny receive invitations to the Minasa escape room facility for a chance to win $10,000. As everyone arrives, they gather in the facility's waiting room and find out they are locked inside, thus beginning the game. Searching for clues, Zoe inadvertently activates heating traps. As the heat intensifies, Zoe manages to unlock a vent by pushing down coffee coasters. As the players make their way through, Amanda has a flashback of crawling through the aftermath of a night attack in Iraq. Everyone escapes just before the room is engulfed in flames. They find themselves in a winter cabin, with the door locked by a 7-letter combination with a hint being "You'll go down in history." The room's clues trigger Ben to have a flashback of driving drunk with friends, singing a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer before crashing the car. He suggests Rudolph, which unlocks the door, and the group escapes into a room resembling a frozen lake. They find the locked exit and a single red coat, and use a fishing pole and magnet to retrieve a key encased in an ice block. Danny falls through the ice and drowns, and the remaining players are forced to melt the ice block with their body heat to free the key. Jason has a flashback of freezing beside someone in a red coat. The players unlock the exit as the ice explodes and collapses. The 5 players enter an upside-down billiards bar, and the song Downtown begins to play on repeat. In a version of musical chairs, whenever the song stops, a section of floor falls away, revealing a long elevator shaft. They find a locked safe, and identify a missing 8-ball as the key to the room. Zoe has a flashback of the aftermath of a plane crash, and realizes the puzzle's clues are upside down. Amanda retrieves the 8-ball from the safe, but accidentally drops it. Sacrificing herself, she throws the ball to Jason before plummeting to her death. The 4 remaining players enter a hospital ward with 6 beds, and discover all the players were sole survivors. Zoe survived a plane crash, Jason, a boat accident with his roommate, Ben, a car crash, Mike, a mining cave-in, Danny, carbon monoxide poisoning, and Amanda, an iod blast. They realize the entire game has been based upon the traumatic events they all lived through. They then deduce that the EKG machine will unlock the door to the next room. Jason inadvertently kills Mike with a defibrillator to open the door. As the room fills with gas, Jason hooks himself up to the EKG and lets the gas lowers his heart rate, opening a passageway. Jason and Ben escape, but Zoe refuses to continue and collapses from the gas. Entering a room covered in optical illusions and strobe lights, Ben confronts Jason over his selfish disregard for the others, and Jason reveals that he survived the boating accident by killing his roommate for his code due to survival of the fittest. They find and open a hatch in the floor but are drugged with a hallucinogen, and struggle against the effects as the room starts to spin. Ben finds the antidote and, in a struggle for the single dose, breaks his leg and kills Jason. Ben injects himself and falls through the hatch into an elaborate study room. As the walls start to close in, he solves the puzzle and narrowly avoids being crushed. Back in the hospital room, armed Minos employees enter the hospital room in hazmat gear to destroy evidence. Zoe, having survived, incapacitates them, seizes a gun and escapes the room into a maintenance area. Ben is then met by the game master, who has controlled the game as designed by the puzzle maker. He explains the true nature of the contest: players, college athletes, savants, lone survivors, celebrities, etc. are lured and brought together by a shared experience, and wealthy viewers bet on who makes it out alive. The game master then tries to kill Ben to stop the game's secrets from being revealed to the public, but Zoe arrives. Together, she and Ben manage to kill the game master and leave. As Ben recovers, Zoe tries to explain events to the police, but all evidence at the facility has disappeared. 6 months later, Zoe shows Ben that the deaths of the other players have been staged as everyday accidents, and he agrees to join her on a flight to New York City to stop the Minos company. However, Minos and the mysterious puzzle maker are already preparing to make their flight a new deadly game. Alright. Also on Friday we will be doing a Goofy movie 1995. Here is the plot in this film. Goofy is the single father of teenager Max Goof, although the two have a tense relationship. On the last day of school before summer vacation, Max and his best friends PJ and Robert Bobby Zimmerowski hijack the auditorium stage in the middle of Principal Mazur's speech, creating a small concert where Max performs, while costumed as the pop singer Powerline. The performance succeeds in making Max a school celebrity and impressing his love interest, Roxanne, but he, PJ, and Bobby are sent to Mazur's office. While waiting outside of the office, Roxanne speaks with Max and agrees to go with him to a party where Powerline's concert will be viewed live on television. However, Mazur calls Goofy and forewarns him that Max's behavior may result in him facing capital punishment. Oblivious to Max's plans with Roxanne, Goofy decides to take Max on a fishing trip to Lake Destiny, Idaho, following a cross-country map route he and his father took years ago. Before they leave town, Max manages to stop by Roxanne's house to call off their date, but when the heartbroken Roxanne mentions going with someone else, Max panics and instead fabricates a story about his father knowing Powerline, telling her he will be on stage at the concert. Despite his son's objections, Goofy plans his own trip, with initially disastrous results. Max hurts his father's feelings after Goofy inadvertently humiliates Max at an opossum-based theme park. Later, Pete and PJ happen to meet up with them while camping by a lake. While PJ informs Max of how all their peers back home anticipate seeing him on stage at the Powerline concert, Pete advises Goofy to keep Max under control. Goofy takes his son fishing and shows him the perfect cast fishing technique, accidentally luring Bigfoot to their camp. Pete and PJ flee, leaving Goofy and Max to spend the night with Bigfoot. At night, while Goofy sleeps, Max alters the map's route to Los Angeles, where the concert is taking place. The next morning, Goofy decides to make Max the navigator of the trip. The two go to several locations that satisfy both of them. Eventually, they stop by a motel where they meet Pete and PJ again. When Pete overhears a conversation between the boys, he tells Goofy that Max has tricked him into traveling to Los Angeles. The next day, Goofy and Max come to a junction, one leading to Idaho, the other to California. Max chooses the route to California, making Goofy stop the car at the Grand Canyon and storm off in anger. With the brake loose, the car drives off on its own. Goofy and Max chase after it and end up in a river. After a heated argument, Goofy solemnly declares that no matter how old Max gets, he will always be his son, and the two finally reconcile with each other. After learning of Max's promise to Roxanne, Goofy decides to take him to the concert in Los Angeles. The two nearly plummet to their deaths down a waterfall, but Max saves Goofy using the perfect cast technique. Goofy and Max make it to the concert, and while attempting to sneak backstage, they end up on stage and dance with Powerline, watched by Pete, PJ and Roxanne on separate televisions. Goofy and Max later return to Roxanne's house in their damaged car. Max tells the truth to Roxanne, though she accepts it and admits she always had feelings for him, ever since the first time she ever heard him laugh, yuck. Thus, a relationship starts between them. Goofy's car suddenly explodes because of damage it had sustained, ejecting Goofy in the process, who then falls through the porch roof of Roxanne's house, and Max proceeds to introduce him to Roxanne. Alright. Also on Friday we will be doing an extremely goofy movie 2000. Here is the plot in this film. Max Goof, finally free of his father, strives to become the top at his college's X Games, which is set to be broadcast on ESPN. After arriving, Max is met by the reigning champions of the games, the Gamma Mu Mu fraternity. Their leader Bradley across 3 invites Max to join them, but on the condition he won't take in his friends since they only want Max. Max declines, but the two bet that whoever loses the finals becomes each other's group's towel boy. Meanwhile, Goofy's empty nest syndrome causes him to falter at work, causing a massive explosion inside at the assembly toy factory and getting him fired. The unemployment office reveals that he needs a college degree to get another job, and since Goofy dropped out of college after 3 years, he is forced to return to college to finish his 4th year, coming to Max's college with his 70s university clothes. Despite Max's grounding efforts, Goofy interrupts their downtimes with chores, making Max introduce him to the librarian, Sylvia Marpole. They date that coming Saturday, during which Max makes his father join the Gammas, whom he'd accidentally impressed during Max's practices. Bradley installs a rocket booster on Goofy's skateboard, but Goofy beats Max in the first qualifiers and Max's team barely makes the semifinals. Max lashes at Goofy to leave him alone and get his own life and storms off in anger. A depressed Goofy ultimately fails his first round of midterm exams. Back home, however, Goofy is inadvertently advised by Pete and Goofy reconciles with Sylvia, who helps him ace the next terms, but when he quits the team, he is literally thrown out. While returning his pin there, he overhears the group plotting for the final, but Max, still angry with his father, does not listen to his warnings. At the semifinals, all teams but Max's are eliminated. Just before the final race, PJ is blasted away, leaving Max and Bobby for disqualification against a replacement. Max calls for Goofy to join, while Bradley is eliminated, but Goofy and Bobby get eliminated as well after accidents. Tank tries winning in Bradley's place, which angers Bradley into making our trio crash into the inflatable X Games logo ship, though they escape the wreckage. And, Max wins by a nose. Goofy congratulates Max for winning the race, but so does Bradley, whom Goofy glares his anger at. Max decides to cancel the bet, but he lets Tank slingshots Bradley into the X Games blimp overhead for double-crossing him. In the final scene, during graduation day, Max gives Goofy his grand prize trophy, as an apology gift for his selfish disownment, and Goofy drives away with Sylvia for their next date. Alright. Also on Friday we will be doing White Sands 1992 film. Here is the plot in this film. Rada Lasalle, a bored Torrance County deputy sheriff, is called to the scene of an apparent suicide in the desert. Alongside the body of Bob Spencer is a suitcase containing $500,000. During the autopsy, they find a digested piece of paper with a phone number. De Lasalle, posing as Spencer, calls the number and goes to a meeting, where he is robbed and instructed to meet Gorman Lennox at a restaurant. FBI agent Greg Meeker intercepts Dolezal and informs him that Spencer was an undercover agent. Now that Dolezal has lost the money, Meeker suggests he continue posing as Spencer to recover the money or help arrest Lennox. Dolezal meets Lennox and his wealthy associate Lane Bodini and learns the money is intended for the purchase of unused military weaponry to arm left-wing freedom fighters in South America. The arms dealers demo the guns for Dolezal and Lennox, but demand an additional $250,000 due to unforeseen expenses. Meeker, unwilling to provide more money, pushes the responsibility on Dolezal, who romances his way into Lane's life so she will attract rich humanitarian donors to fund the deal. Meanwhile, two FBI internal affairs agents suspect Dolezal of killing Spencer and stealing the money. Dolezal is forced to admit to Lane he is not really Spencer, but she agrees to help raise the money because she finds Dolezal a better alternative to the volatile Lennox. Dolezal learns from Noreen, who had an affair with the real Spencer, that he was working with an FBI agent who likely killed him. Noreen runs away at the sight of Meeker and the internal affairs agents grab Dolezal. Lennox runs the agents off the road, Dolezal flees and returns to Lane. He discovers Noreen shot dead and a Polaroid of her with Spencer and Meeker. Dolezal breaks into a surveillance van outside Lane's house and beats up the FBI agent. He confronts Meeker, accusing him of killing Spencer and Noreen. Meeker admits he took the $500,000 without authorization to steal it and capture Lennox at the same time, but Spencer lost his nerve and wanted out. Meeker confronted him out in the desert and convinced him to shoot himself. He tells Dolezal that Polaroid proves nothing, and no one will believe his word against that of a minority agent with a spotless record. Lennox meets Dolezal and reveals the two internal affairs agents tied up in the trunk of his car. They drive into the desert, where Lennox says he knows Dolezal is not Spencer, because Lennox is really a CIA agent who wants the arms deal to go through, ensuring the survival of the military-industrial complex. Lennox kills the two agents and informs Dolezal that he has Lane hostage. Dolezal must find where she hid the $250,000 and meet Lennox on a deserted military base in the White Sands Desert. Dolezal uncovers the money in a briefcase buried in Lane's horse's stall. He kidnaps Meeker, takes him to White Sands, and handcuffs him to a pipe inside an abandoned building. Dolezal explains that Lennox is CIA, the FBI will be arriving soon, and Meeker can either face punishment or try to flee. Dolezal leaves a gun behind, so that with some effort Meeker is able to grab it and hide inside a bathroom stall. Lennox arrives and reveals that Lane is waiting at the base entrance. Dolezal placed the briefcase in the abandoned building, but when Lennox walks in, Meeker shoots and kills him. After disabling Lennox's car, Dolezal picks up Lane. He drops her off at her estate and explains that he needs to return to his family. He hands her the $250,000 she had obtained through her pseudo-fundraising event. A small army of FBI arrive in cars and helicopters. Meeker breaks the pipe he was cuffed to and runs through the desert with the briefcase. Dolezal left the original $500,000 he was originally suspected of stealing so the FBI will stop investigating him, but one of the agents notices footprints going out into White Sands and so they head off in pursuit. As the FBI catches up with him, Meeker stumbles and drops the briefcase, which breaks open. It contains nothing but sand. Alright. That's all the home video releases we got. Second, we will be doing Monkey Pictures and Roman Cow Productions and Donkey Teeth Company shorts. The Easter Bunny was hopping along the trail and hid all chocolates some in the meadows and then kids found them and they enjoyed eating chocolates. Alright. That's all the shorts we got. Third, we will be doing Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. It is about my daughter having a dream about her adventures while those other classes doing their midterm exams starting at 7 o'clock. You can do any S10 Plus you want to make me laughter. That's all I got for today. Let's do some work now.
Okay, class, let's do some work.